like a bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here.
Hello everybody, today we'll be going into the chapter from Social Studies Political Science portion, chapter 2, which will be dealing with the types or the classification of the government. All of us, we know that each and every country has their government of its own. Now, we find that how does this government is being classified in the different countries of the world. Let us now, first of all, we have to know who classified this government for the first time. All of us, we know about Aristotle. Yes, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher and his follower Plato. Both of them, they have classified the government for the first time, and according to them, we have three types of government, that is monarchy, aristocracy and oligarchy. And from here, we'll be studying about monarchy, aristocracy and polity. Now, here is a little bit difference here. Monarchy is a government where a king ruled a country. Now, when a king starts ruling against the people, we find that that type of government becomes tyranny here. The opposite of monarchy is a rule of a king where the king rules for the goodwill of the people, whereas tyranny is a government where the king rules against the people. This is the opposite of monarchy. Another one is aristocracy. Aristocracy is a form of government where some people, a few groups of people, rules a country, and when that few people started working for their willingness, for their selfish wishes, it turns into oligarchy. This is another one. Whereas polity is a government where different peoples rule the country, where we find that it can be named as democracy also. Democracy is not the negative form of polity, whereas tyranny is a negative form of monarchy, whereas democracy is not the negative form of polity, but it is opposite to democracy. Now, after Aristotle and Plato and Aristotle, we have another philosopher that is known as Leacock. Okay, now Leacock has classified the government into this form. First of all, we will see that he differentiates between dictatorship and democracy. Democracy is a country where the government works for the people, by the people, and it's of the people. Another one is dictatorship. Dictatorship is a form of government where the government rules against the people. Now here we find that democracy, we will be going with democracy now. Now in modern democracy, we find that democracy, under the form of democratic country, we find that different forms of governments come up, and that is known as limited monarchy, another one is republic, another one is unitary, another one is president. Let's study in details now. In a democracy, we find that democracy can be divided into three forms, where we have two forms each. Number one is parliamentary or the presidential. Another one is the direct or the indirect form of government. Another one is the unitary and the federal form of government. Now after this, we will be going with the detailed study of these forms of government. Now first of all, let's go with the parliamentary form of government. Now parliamentary, from the word parliamentary, all of us, we know that when a country rules in a parliamentary form, here a house is here where all the people gathers together, and that house is known as the parliament in India. We find that India is a democratic country. All of us, we know, yes. We have India, we have a successful democracy, whereas some countries, we find that monarchy used to rule them, means the king are there, the queens are there. India, from their ancestral succession, but we find that there also still democracy prevails. For example, Nepal. Nepal is a country where they have their own king, but we find that a democratic form of government prevails in that country at present also. Now, first of all, here we'll be studying on the parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary. Now, let's see what is the characteristics. Characteristics means the features. Okay, how does it work? What happens in this form of government? This and that. All. First of all, in a parliamentary form of government, we have two heads. Now, what are these two heads? Number one, we find that there is the Council of Ministers along with the Prime Minister is one head. And another one is the President. These are the two heads, the executive and the legislature. Now, we find the executive work is being done by the Council of Ministers along with the Prime Minister, whereas legislative work is being done by the President. Another characteristics of the parliamentary form of government is that the executive and the members of the executive are also the members of the legislature. What do you mean by, now all of us, you are confused, what is legislative, what is executive, and what is judiciary? Yes. Now let's little bit a small explanation. Now, legislative is legislate. Legislate means to form. Another one is the execute. Executive. Execute. What do you mean by execute? To work out. And judiciary. Now, judiciary is the one which to judge. These are the three branches of the government. That is the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive. Now, in a parliamentary form of government, we find that this executive and the legislative have a very close relationship. Another one, we find that the Council of Ministers, we find all of us, who are the Council of Ministers here? The MPs, the MLAs, they are the Council of Ministers. Now, this Council of Ministers are responsible to the legislature. To the legislature means, what is the work of the legislature? Now, the work of the legislature is to form. Yes? Now, to form means, this Council of Ministers sits together in the parliament and discuss what to be done within the country. That is to legislate, means to execute, means to form first and to work out, that is to execute. Another one is the collective responsibility of the Council of Ministers. Collective responsibility means this Council of Ministers, they have their own respective duties to be performed in their sphere, in their areas. This is the one. Now let's go to the merits. If we have a parliamentary form of government, what good things can be happen within our country? And lastly, we'll be discussing about the demerits. It's if we have a parliamentary form of government, what bad things might happen. This is what. First of all, let's go with the merits. Now, the good things in a parliamentary form of government means there might be unity, okay, because they are working in a one group, means in for one project. Then they might have different opinions, but after all, in a final wordings, they will be having their own one opinion. Yes. Now, like that, we find that there is a better chances of unity, better chances of cooperation, means to work together, and cordial relationship means to cooperate with one another. Another one, we find that in a parliamentary form of government, no one get the chance to work against another people because they are collectively responsible to the parliament. They don't have the power to act against one another. Number third is if the Prime Minister, okay, or any form of minister works against the willing of the common people, we find that they can collectively come together and file a case against the minister, and that minister can be removed from the parliament. Another one is we find that here in a parliamentary form of government, public opinion is having a great value, means the people has a good power to work out in a parliamentary form of governments. How do the people work out in a parliamentary form? Here we find that the people elect their representative to come in the parliament to bring forward their willingness in the parliament so that the government works for them out. This is what. Another one, we find that if we have a parliamentary form of government, the execution of the work can be easily done. How it comes? We find that many ministers comes from different local areas. Yes, now these ministers will surely come forward with their own opinions of the local people. Now, if that bill or their willingness is being passed by the government, those ministers from the particular area will execute that in their area. In this way we find that the distribution of execution, means the execution of different projects or anything, we find that in the different parts of the country can be easily functioned out. This is the one, this is the merits. Now, here come the demerits. What are the demerits now? Demerits means what bad things can happen in a parliamentary form of government. Now, alliance government, we find that alliance government is a form of government where different groups of people come together. But when they have some different form of opinion, they unite together with 2 or 3 groups together and they form another group. Now, alliance government is such type of government. Now, the chances for alliance government to be formed in a parliamentary form of government is very sure, or it might happen. There is a chance for it. Another one, sometimes we find that they might be inexperienced. What do you mean by they don't have any knowledge about it in a departmental activities? Okay, means some in a parliamentary form of government we find that different peoples come from different areas. Now, they might not have the full idea of another place. In such, we find that they might be deprived of some knowledge of different activities. Another one, there is a possibility that the Council of Ministers may lose their tyrannical rule, We find that the Council of Ministers sometimes happens that they stop doing work for their own will. Means for the people, then they started working for their own parties. It might happen in a parliamentary form. Another one is the party consideration. We find that these ministers in India, as a democratic country, we find that these ministers wins the election by only having a party rule. Yes, when they stand for a party, we find that these ministers, by keeping aside the willingness of the people, they might work for their party interests. This might happen in a parliamentary form of government. This is what. Now, after finishing with the parliamentary form of government, let's go with the presidential form of government. All of us, we know that presidential form of government, from the word president itself, we come to know that it is a rule of a country by its president directly. Okay, there might not be any parliament or anything, means the president is the head and supreme power of a country in a presidential form of government. Now here, in short form, I will be giving you a short list of the characteristics now. Number 1, there is no distinction. Before in the parliamentary, we have the distinction between head of the state and the head of the country. Now here, there is no distinction between the head of a state and head of a government. There is no distinction, there is no minister, the president is the head. Another one is principle of the separation of power. There is no execution, there is no legislature, president takes the decision. Another one is we have a fixed tenure. Means, what is a fixed tenure? Means the president comes into power for only 5 years. Okay, he will be changing after every next 5 years. Then advisory status of the cabinet. Here the cabinet is who? The cabinet are the council of ministers along with the prime minister. They can advise the president, Okay, they can advise the president in different situation or any circumstances. Rigid constitution. Rigid is what? What's the meaning of rigid and flexible now? Here is in a presidential form of government, we have a rigid forms of constitution. What is rigid now? Rigid means that cannot be changed. Flexible means that can be changed at different times. But rigid constitution is what? That cannot be changed. We find that in a parliamentary form of government, we have a flexible form of constitution. Whereas in a presidential form of government, we have rigid form of constitution that cannot be changed in the presidential form. Now here, merits, I'll be just sorting it out. Merits and demerits in one way. Now merits of a presidential form of government is that during emergency, if an emergency comes, presidential form of government is the most situable, means it is very favorable, because the president is the only one which takes all the decision. That's why quick decision can be taken in a presidential form of government. Whereas in a parliamentary form of government, quick decisions cannot be taken because they have to undergo different discussions and all. That's why it takes a long process of taking decision. Whereas in a presidential form of government, decisions can be taken very quickly in times of emergency. Now here we find that there may be we find the execution. Now here comes the execution. Here in the presidential form of government, as the order of a president is full and final, the execution of the work has to be taken immediately. It cannot be delayed out. That's why the work is being done, the work which is being done in a presidential form of government is very quick and fast. This is in short the good merits of a presidential form of government. Let's go to the demerits now. Here, in demerits, we find that there is no relationship between the legislature and the executive. Yes, there is no discussion of making any laws. That's why it might find that there might sometimes we find that those decisions might be changed in a wrong way, or it might have taken a wrong decision in a wrong time. This is in short form. There is no detailed discussion of the presidential form of government. This is the one. Let's discuss now the unitary form of government. After the parliamentary and the president, direct and indirect, I'll just explain you later on. Now here, unitary and the federal form of government. Now what is the unitary? By the word uni and federal. Here, unitary. Here, uni means one and federal means two. Here from the word it comes very easily. You come to know that uni means one government, that is the central government. Yes. Another one is the federal, that is the state and the central government. In a unitary form of government, we have one government. Another one is the federal form of government. We have the state government and the central government in two forms. Now, let's discuss first of all about the unitary form of government. Now, unitary form of government is a very strong government, because here all the decision, all the legislature, all the executive and the judiciary are collectively responsible to that particular central government. That's why we find that a unitary form of government is very strong. Another one is written and unwritten. Written constitution and unwritten constitution. What is the difference between written and unwritten? Now, written constitution are the laws which are made in words as written in the book of the government, whereas unwritten are the laws which are not written in the book of the constitution. Those are known as written and unwritten. We find that unitary form of government, we have a written or an unwritten constitution. Another one is single citizenship. Here we find, as in India, all of us know that we are called Indians. Yes, now this is our single citizenship. Yes, in India we have single citizenship, whereas in America, for example, in America we have dual citizenship. In both of us, America has the presidential form of government, but we have the democracy. But still, we find that in regard to citizenship, India has single citizenship whereas USA has dual citizenship. Yes. Now in India, we have a single citizenship in India which is provided to us by a unitary form of government, whereas federal form of government does not give us this form of single citizenship, because we can be regarded as the people of a state also and people of the country also. Yes, but India, we find only one citizenship, that is the unitary citizenship, that is the single citizenship in India. And judiciary. Now, why do we find judiciary? Why do we say that unitary form of government has a weak judiciary? What do you mean by judiciary means? Judiciary means to judge or to look out. Yes. Now, why do we say unitary form of government have a weak judiciary? It is because, as we know that India is a very big country, is it possible for the central government to look after each and every state of the country in a similar process? No, it's not possible. That's why we find that as the central government is unsuccessful in looking after the different states of the country properly and similarly, we find that we have a weak government. For that reason only, we find that India is having a federal form of government, because we have the state government too. Now here, flexible constitution. Now in a unitary form of government, as I told you before, flexible means that can be changed. This is the characteristics of a unitary form of government. Along with the characteristics, we have also gone through the merits and the demerits, same way. Okay. After that, let's go with the federal form of government. Okay, now let's go with the federal form of government. Now, after studying with the unitary form of government, we will be going with the federal form of government. Now, federal form of government is the one which have two forms of government. That is the state government. Another one is the central form of government. State and the central government. Here we find that there is no decentralization of power. Means decentralization means the power is not vested upon the center also, not vested upon the state also. State and the central government have similar powers. Another one is the separation of powers. Means some powers are distributed in the state level, some powers are distributed in the central level. Whereas we find that the constitution in a federal form of government are written also and unwritten also. It might be rigid and it might be flexible. Means it can be changed and sometimes it cannot be changed. And here in a federal form of government, before as I've told you, unitary form of government have a single citizenship. Federal form of government has dual citizenship. Another one is the independent judiciary and all this and that. This is nothing. As we find that federal form of government is having two forms of government. What do you think? If we have more people in a small family, yes, the workload of the family might become more. The capacity of the house might become small. Similarly, we find it in a federal form of government, the government of the country has to spend a lot of money. Quick decisions cannot be taken. Yes, quick decisions cannot be taken. Then workload will be more, money will be spent. People will have to suffer more, because whether they have to work out with the center or with the state, this difficulty arises. We find it many demerits also we have in a federal form of government. After all these, we will be direct and indirect. After this, let's go with direct and indirect in a small way. Direct government is the government where people elect their representative as their own wish. Another one is indirect election. In indirect form of government, indirect is the one where people elect their representative and those representatives elect another representative for running the country. That is known as indirect form of government. All these we will be studying in our future classes. Okay. This is all for the class 9 chapter 2. All of this, and we will be ending up the chapter here. I hope you understood. Thank you very much and be safe at your house.
Stay home, stay safe.
Do it for self.
Do it for your family. Do it for India.
Let's break the chain of COVID-19.
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद. हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद.
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद.